Ever get that feeling, where someone just doesn't seem to like you? And you can't for the life of you figure out why?
Oh, tell me about it. It's like,
Yeah.
what am I missing here?
Right. So today we're diving deep into that exact feeling, but get this, through a spiritual lens.
Ooh, it's gonna be good.
I know, right?
Yeah,
We're looking at this article, Texto Colado, and it's all about how sometimes embracing your own potential, your own light, can actually rub people the wrong way.
it's funny you should say that because the article uses the term chosen one, which, initially made me think like superheroes and grand destinies.
Totally. But it's actually way more relatable than that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's not about being superior, it's about owning your path, your purpose. And the article suggests that can sometimes create some, shall we say, unexpected friction in our relationships.
Interesting.
Have you noticed that? When someone's just shining so brightly, it's almost like intimidating.
It's like that saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And the article talks about that, how when someone steps into their own light, it can kind of unintentionally highlight, the shadows in others, even if they're not trying to be like provocative or anything.
It's almost like their light is reflecting back at us, showing us the parts of ourselves that we might not be ready to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And the article actually lays out 6 specific ways this can play out, and some of them are, I gotta say, pretty counterintuitive.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
Right. Like, one of the reasons people might have this knee-jerk negative reaction is because just your presence alone is triggering their own insecurities. So say you've been working on yourself, feeling good about life, confident.
Right, right.
Someone who's struggling with self-doubt might see that and feel a pang of envy, even if, on the surface, they're happy for you.
Oh, 100%. It's like that friend who lands their dream job when you're feeling stuck in your career. Like, you're genuinely happy for them, but
But there's that little part of you that's like, why not me? And what the article's saying is that this reaction, it gets amplified when someone is actively, cultivating their inner world, their spirituality. It can be a stark contrast for those who haven't even started on that journey.
makes sense. Like two completely different wavelengths almost.
Which kind of ties into another point the article makes about this idea of, and it uses this phrase, remarkable presence.
Okay.
And it's not about being loud or flashy, but rather having this inner peace, this quiet confidence that just draws attention and sometimes unwanted attention.
I get that. It's like they have this aura, I guess you could call it, and it can be unsettling for some people.
Okay.
Maybe they misinterpret it as something else, or maybe going back to that mirror analogy, it just reminds them of their own, internal chaos.
Oh, that's so spot on. It's like they're seeing a reflection of what they could have if they just, faced their own stuff.
Exactly. And speaking of facing our stuff, another reason the article highlights is how resilience and determination, especially in someone who's, on the spiritual path, can actually be a source of friction.
Okay, let's unpack that one because on the surface, those sound like universally positive traits. I mean, who doesn't want to be more resilient, right?
Right. But remember, we're talking about this whole thing from an energetic perspective.
Right.
So imagine you tend to give up easily,
Right.
and you're watching someone just effortlessly navigate challenges, bouncing back from setbacks that would have you, waving the white flag.
Ooh, yeah.
It's kind of shining a light on your own tendency to quit, even if you don't want to admit it to yourself.
Oof, yeah. Talk about a gut punch. I've definitely been on both sides of that equation.
And sometimes that gut punch, it can come from some pretty unexpected places. Like the article talks about how even things like sympathy and authenticity, which we usually see as good things, right, can actually rub people the wrong way.
Yeah, that one kind of threw me for a loop too. Like, how could being genuine and caring be a turnoff? It doesn't make sense.
But what they're saying is for people who are really dug in, to being inauthentic, maybe they're always putting on a show, meeting someone who's totally comfortable just being themselves.
It can be threatening.
Yeah, exactly. It's like their carefully constructed facade is cracking. Right?
It's like holding up a mirror to all the parts they're trying to hide.
Exactly. And it forces them to face a part of themselves they've been avoiding. And, the article says that the further someone goes on their spiritual journey, the more authentic they tend to become, which can be a huge contrast.
Especially for people who are still clinging to those masks.
Exactly.
So it's not like the authentic person is doing anything wrong.
No, not at all.
They're just being themselves.
Right.
But for someone who's built their whole identity on this, like this facade, it can feel like a personal attack.
Yeah. It's funny how that works, right? And, the article also dives into another reason for this, like this unexplained negativity,
Okay, what is it?
being a target for projection.
Oh, like scapegoating.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
When someone's seen as, chosen, and again, we're using that term loosely here,
Right, right.
but when someone seems really aligned, radiating that energy.
People can start dumping their baggage on them.
Exactly. Their frustrations, their insecurities, because it's easier to blame someone else than to look inward, right?
Oh, for sure. So if that person, the chosen one, is doing so great,
Right.
then obviously anything going wrong must be someone else's fault, not theirs.
Exactly. And the article says this happens a lot in environments where everyone's expected to fit in.
Where being different is a threat.
Exactly. Being chosen, in this sense, it kind of disrupts the status quo.
It's like you're not allowed to stand out.
Yeah. And it can make people uncomfortable.
Makes you think, right? All the times I've felt that pressure to downplay my own sparkle.
Right. It's exhausting.
It really is. But the article talks about a really interesting way to understand these dynamics.
Okay, I'm listening. What is it?
Past lives.
Ooh.
Like how those experiences, even if we don't consciously remember them,
Right.
they can still affect our relationships today.
Whoa. Okay. Hold on. So are we saying that someone might dislike us because of something that happened in a past life?
It's not always like a direct cause and effect,
Okay.
but more like an energetic residue.
Okay.
And the article mentions this woman, Dolores Cannon. She was all about this stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And she said that these past life encounters, especially the intense ones, the ones with a lot of karmic weight to them,
Yeah.
they can create these unconscious patterns
Okay.
that we carry with us.
Into this life.
Exactly.
So even if we don't remember the details, those past experiences are still coloring our perceptions.
Exactly. And this ties into the chosen one thing, because Cannon believed that people with a big spiritual mission, they often choose lives that are going to challenge them.
To help them grow.
Yeah. And sometimes that means dealing with unfinished business from past lives.
Oh.
So someone might react to us not just based on who we are now, but
Who we were to them before.
exactly. It's wild, right?
It kind of is, yeah.
Yeah.
It might sound out there to some people, but when you start to see your relationships through that lens, it's like this whole new level of understanding.
Yeah. And maybe even compassion for the people who just seem to have it out for us.
Yeah, for no reason, yeah. But if running into that kind of negativity is just part of the deal, how do we deal with it? How do we keep it from dragging us down?
So if these past life echoes can affect our relationships in this life, and we're kind of drawn to these challenges because we're meant to, evolve, how do we handle that without getting totally overwhelmed?
Yeah, that's the big question,
Yeah.
right? And the article talks about how it really comes down to discernment.
Yeah.
Being able to tell the difference between a genuine connection and someone who's coming from a more negative place, even if they don't realize it themselves.
With being careful about who we let into our circle, setting boundaries, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's not about putting up walls or anything, but just being aware of where you're putting your energy and who you're letting influence your vibe,
Right.
Because even though running into negativity is tough, it can actually be a chance to grow.
Oh, interesting.
It's like it pushes you to be stronger, more compassionate, and maybe most importantly, to get better at figuring out what's good for you and what's not.
It's like what the article said about light and darkness, how they exist together.
Right. You can't have one without the other.
So maybe facing some of this negativity, it's just part of what happens when you're stepping into your own light.
Almost like a test from the universe.
Right. How committed are you, really?
Exactly. And the thing is, it's not about blaming yourself or the other person, but seeing the bigger picture, the energy behind it all.
And understanding that everyone's on their own path.
Yeah, even the people who seem to be, triggering us.
It's almost like the people who are the toughest for us to deal with.
They end up teaching us the most.
Even if it's not always fun.
Right.
Maybe those really negative experiences, they're actually these amazing chances to grow that are just, in disguise.
Totally.
Wow, that is a really powerful way to look at it. So it's not about pointing fingers. It's about owning our own energy, figuring out who's really there for us, and trusting that everything happens for a reason, even the hard stuff.
Perfectly said. And isn't that really what this whole journey is about?
This whole conversation has given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
And if you're listening and you've ever felt that sting of being disliked and you couldn't figure out why, remember, it might not have anything to do with you at all. Could be their own stuff, their baggage, even echoes from another life. But you get to choose how you handle it. So focus on your own light, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and trust the journey. And until next time, keep exploring those depths.